you for joining us on Zoom today so we can share some more information about our grants and nonprofit resources. We've got quite a bit of information to get through today in the next hour, so we will go ahead and dive in. My name is Katie Ottinger, and I am the Community Investment and Grants Officer at the Community Foundation of Hancock County. And my partner in crime is Carol Reynolds, our Finance and Programming Associate. You'll get to hear from her a little bit later. So I'm going to kick off our agenda today talking high level about the Community Foundation and what we do, then dive deeper into different resources we offer nonprofits. I'm also going to tell you about our grant opportunities, the timelines, and other details. Carol will provide a refresher on online resources. And if you have any questions at any point, please utilize the chat function. Carol and I will monitor the chat box for each other and then make sure that all of your questions get answered either here today or we'll follow up with you after the Zoom. Also, for those who may just be joining, this meeting is being recorded, and we'll provide a link to the recording as well as the slide deck after this workshop. So I wanted to start by providing a quick, just high-level overview of the Community Foundation's strategic priorities. You can see them on the screen. We have 5 initiative areas. Partners in Nonprofit Excellence is the strategy that encompasses our work with all of you. One part of that is nonprofit capacity building, and that includes our grant making and other nonprofit support resources. And this is the bulk of the work in this initiative area. Then recovery and resilience is a strategy that resulted ultimately from COVID and our work with the Hartford Hancock Emergency Response Fund. And now that is an ongoing commitment to convening and remaining deeply connected with nonprofit direct service providers so that we are informed and can respond as appropriate to ever-changing dynamics and circumstances. These are a few programs under the Partners in Nonprofit Excellence, or PINE, is the acronym we use for the strategy. Level Up is a grants-based capacity building program. We work with nonprofits to identify an area of their organization where they can grow their capacity. So maybe it's strategic planning, board development, donor relations, financial management. And then once that area is identified, we provide a grant to hire a consultant to work with that organization on growing in that area. We're currently working with 2026 grantees on their projects. We're not planning to do a level up grant cycle in 2027, but we'll be looking to bring that program back in the future. Then the Excellence Academy provides an in-depth curriculum and learning community for small and mid-sized nonprofits. Participants learn together about leadership, board engagement, resource development, and nonprofit management. We're about halfway through our current cohort, and it's a 3-year program. So again, we'll hopefully be offering this again sometime in the future. And I know we have some Excellence Academy graduates on the call with us today. Then Hello Hancock is a community calendar designed to help decrease event scheduling conflicts among nonprofits. Hello Hancock is hosted on our website, and Carol is the one who keeps it updated. So we encourage you to check it before you schedule events to ensure you're not scheduling the same time as another event that might create a conflict for a large number of your target audience. Then another component of Hello Hancock has become volunteer matching. We know some volunteer bases still haven't recovered fully from COVID losses, and we want to help facilitate connections among nonprofits and community members who are interested in volunteering. So we also host a public-facing nonprofit directory on our website. You have access to it if you are looking for a contact maybe at another local agency. Then when we get periodic questions from the public about volunteering, that's the place we direct people. So if your nonprofit is not listed and you would like to be, Carol will walk through the sign-up process here in a bit. And the URL that will get you there is hellohancock.com. Then finally, Mission Masters is a program we launched a few years ago to help train individuals who are new to nonprofit boards or who are interested in serving on a board. We partner with Hedges, which is a consultant in Indianapolis, to provide the content, and then we convene the Hancock County cohort at our offices to discuss topics in a more localized context. So we'll do a call out later this year and would love for you to consider sending a board member or two to go through this training. It's free for the participants, free for the nonprofit. It's a service that the Community Foundation offers. Right. So here now is an overview of the 2026 grant cycles that we're going to talk about today. The annual grant cycle is back and will offer program and project and capital improvement funding. And we'll talk more in depth about that in a moment. Nonprofit internship grants provide funds for nonprofits to hire high school interns. Mini grants will continue to be available this year, and the maximum request amount will continue to be $1,500. Education foundations have a separate grant cycle and application process, and that information has been emailed out if it's relevant to you. Ignite grants are for placemaking efforts, community development, and quality of life. And this grant cycle is open to celebrating community partners. If your organization is eligible for these grants, we will be sending that information out later this year. The White Family Foundation grant cycle will open this spring, and more information will be available on that soon and will be communicated through nonprofit news. I'll talk briefly about youth philanthropy as well. And we have a new grant cycle to share this year around team building we're excited about. Okay, so we'll start with the annual grant cycle. So here is just the snapshot of the timeline on the screen. The letters of intent or LOIs are due by January 30th by noon. So if your nonprofit is invited to submit a full application, those applications will be due April 1st by noon. Then if your organization receives a grant, we will take grant photos and hand checks out on May 12th. Okay, diving into the two components of the annual grant cycle. The first area for which you could submit a proposal is program and project support. So we define this as a grant to support or expand an existing charitable program or project, or to create and launch a new charitable program and project. And the maximum request amount our grants committee will entertain this year is $10,000. The minimum is $1,500. And the reason there's a minimum, that just helps us distinguish these grants from mini grants, which we'll talk about in a moment, and remove confusion about which is appropriate for each grant cycle. And the second area for which we'll accept requests is capital improvement. And our committee will again entertain requests for capital purchases with an expected useful life of 12 months or more. So we think of these as building repairs and additions or any kind of structural enhancement on a property. It may be the purchase of new equipment, technology, hardware and software, vehicles, vehicle upgrades, furniture, just to give you some ideas of some of the things that would be eligible under the capital improvement category. Same minimum and maximum request limits there. Then here's an eligibility matrix created in an effort to help distinguish what is and is not eligible. You can also see this matrix on our website and on the online grant portal. Just a couple things I'll draw your attention to here. So while churches and faith-based organizations are eligible to apply, our grant policy dictates that our grant funds cannot support programming that is proselytizing in nature or religious instruction. So you'll see the note at the bottom of the matrix that proposals from churches must show evidence of community impact beyond the congregation. Then there's always a question if an application can include salaries. So we've differentiated that. The way we kind of delineated that is if salaries are for a new or existing staff whose position is at least 75% providing a direct service or programming to clients, that would be eligible for funding under the programming and project support category in the annual grant cycle. Other staff salaries that do not meet that criteria would not be eligible in this grant cycle. Employee benefits would not be eligible either. So hopefully this helps provide some clarity on what is and is not eligible based on frequent questions that I get. But as always, my email, my phone is open. If you want to call and talk through something, I'm happy to do that. Okay, and then the first step in the annual grant cycle process is a letter of intent. So the LOI, this is going to be shorter than a full application. It starts by asking for an organization overview. So this would include your mission, number of residents served, how your organization makes Hancock County a better place. Then it will ask you to give your proposal a brief and clear title. We ask that you please choose something that makes it as clear as possible what the request is. And I love how creative that some of you are with this, and I encourage reasonable creativity. throughout the rest of the proposal, but just for our record keeping, ask that you would please make this title cut and dry. It's possible that I may change the title of your proposal, so please don't be offended if I do that and make your title that you made really fun if I make it really boring. Then, since this is the LOI stage and we aren't asking for a line-by-line project budget yet, we are looking for your anticipated request amount. So there are two options in the LOI form for reporting this. If you do know at this time the exact amount you are requesting, there's a text box where you can enter that. If you don't yet know the exact amount, there's an option to select a range. And so you just need to complete one of those anticipated funding required options, not both of them. Then next is a concept summary, which is going to be the meat of your LOI. And this is where you'll tell us what you would do with the funds, what would be accomplished, how does this align with your organization's mission, how would the county benefit, how would this meet a community need. Then the next question will ask you to describe how the expertise and capacity of your staff and or volunteers positions your organization to carry out your mission, relevant programs, and this grant request. Then there's an additional text box for it's optional for additional information. And this is just if you have any more information that you'd like to share that didn't fit into any of the other question fields. It's kind of a free space. We want to make sure you have the opportunity to say what you'd want to say. And then finally, there's a new optional question you'll see at the end, and it's going to be titled Invitation to Share. Again, this is an optional one. This is going to ask if your organization is experiencing any new challenges or an increase in client needs related to changes in federal or state policies or funding. This is information gathering on our part and not meant to be a primary factor in decision making for this grant cycle. So if you have something to share, we'd really like to hear that. If not, you can please just leave that blank. It is totally optional. And just a note that submission of an LOI does not guarantee the organization will be invited to submit a full application. This is the first step in the process. So next slide, to give you some insight into the decision-making process, here are the questions that our grants committee will be considering when they review the LOIs. So they're going to be asking themselves, does this proposal have the potential to make a positive impact in the community? Does the idea seem feasible, logical? And does this proposal and organization, are there any red flags that we have with this? And some of that I may follow up if there are some questions that we have in order for them to make those decisions. But this is what our committee members are going to be asking themselves as they review them. Then after the committee reviews LOIs, it will be determined which organizations will be invited to submit a full application. So many of you have completed applications with us before, so nothing should be surprising here. If your organization is invited to submit a full application, these are some of the things that you will be asked. There is also an optional section with organizational questions around board engagement, collaboration with other entities, and capacity building. You don't have to fill those out, but this is just an opportunity to help your organization stand out. And then I'll talk more about the attachments in just a moment. And then again, just for some transparency, here are some of the questions our grants committee will be considering when evaluating the full applications. They'll be thinking about impact, capacity, and feasibility. And here, if you want to, you can review back to this slide deck. I put all the detail here if that's something you want to have with you as you're completing your full application. So that is all I have on the annual grant cycle. Carol, any questions in the chat before I move on to other grants? Okay. I'll pause in case anybody wants to come off mute with a question that they have. All right, well, I'm killing it so far. Good, good, crystal clear. Love it. All right, so moving on to the White Family Foundation grants. These are different from your typical grants from the Community Foundation because this is actually a donor advised fund that we steward, meaning members of the White family make grant recommendations to us based on their charitable interests. So the grant application process is organized by the Community Foundation, but the decision making is conducted by the donors. So I just wanted to clarify that distinction. The focus of these grants is to assist local community development and support initiatives that enhance the desire to live, work, and play in Hancock and Henry counties. So all of our other grants require that an applicant must be a charitable organization serving Hancock County. And again, because the purpose of these grants is driven by a donor, for the white grants, you do not need to necessarily serve Hancock County, but need to serve somewhere in their area of interest, which includes Henry County in this case. So eligible projects include beautification projects, building facade improvements, recreational enhancements, and accessibility, public safety, and transportation. I will say they have funded quite a bit outside of these specific areas, so you can still apply if you have a project that doesn't necessarily align with one of those areas. There is no minimum or maximum request amount that we state. The grant amounts typically range from about $5,000 to all the way down to even $500, just to give you an idea of where they're typically landing. We don't have a timeline set in stone yet, but the application typically opens in early March with a deadline in early May. Then family members typically do an interview or a site visit with applicants, usually in the summer, and decisions are usually communicated in July. So mini grants, again, the maximum request amount will continue to be $1,500. Requests for immediate needs or emergencies will be given priority. Requests should be for a one-time expense. These grants are really not meant to sustain a project or a program from year to year. Also, these grants are really not designed to support events, especially to sponsor fundraising events. However, if you have a one-time event that's providing a charitable service, we can certainly discuss that, but fundraising events are really not what these funds are for. Then want to note that the applicant, whoever submits the application, must be the organization that will benefit from the proposed use of funds. So just an example, while I'm saying this, last few years, we've had maybe a Boy Scout troop or a Leadership Hancock County project group contacting us about funding for projects that they are doing for a nonprofit. And that's fine. If that's happening for your organization, that's great. You would just need to be the applicant, not the Boy Scouts or Leadership Hancock County, because that project is benefiting you. You will ultimately be the one responsible for ensuring that those funds are spent appropriately and doing the reporting. Then organizations may receive up to $1,500 in mini grants in a calendar year. There's no limit on the number of applications. So if you receive a $500 mini grant in March and then have a need come up for $1,000 in October, you can apply again, just as long as you're at or under that $1,500 threshold for the year. Then mini grants are administered on a rolling cycle each calendar year. So applications are accepted and evaluated on a first come, first served basis until the funds available for the calendar year are gone. So at any point during the year, if you have a need arise that you think would be a fit for a mini grant, please give me a call or send me an email. Let me know what you're thinking. And if it fits, I'll send you the link to the application. We don't have direct access to the application available publicly. I prefer to have a touch point first to know what you're thinking before then we start that process. So then I also encourage you to reach out to me if you have an unexpected need or an emergency that arises that may be larger than $1,500. Depending on the situation, the scale of the need, it's possible we may be able to make some magic happen. So definitely feel free to let me know if something comes up for your organization. Okay, the Community Foundation will continue to offer a grant program to fund paid internships for high school students at nonprofits. And the goal is for this experience to not only provide a valuable learning opportunity for students, but to also provide an expanded skill set and diverse perspective to your nonprofit. So an internship, just at its basic definition, is a form of structured and supervised experiential learning that provides interns practical workplace experience. So internships encompass learning objectives, observation, reflection, evaluation, and assessment. I say all that this experience, if you're wanting to provide this for a student, would need to have some meat to it beyond, the typical making copies, running errands, getting coffee, that kind of thing. Applicants for this grant must have staffed office space in Hancock County and an established payroll process. Grant recipients must hire a student who is a Hancock County resident and currently attends Eastern Hancock, Greenfield Central, Mount Vernon, or New Palestine high schools. Grant funds will be expressly for providing monetary compensation to the intern for their work. The grantee would set the pay rate. So our grant funds will cover an hourly pay rate of up to $13 an hour and not less than federal minimum wage requirements. And then we want to offer an additional 10% of the grant award to cover things like payroll taxes and other incidental costs. So grantees, you could pay in excess of $13 an hour and or engage with an intern for more than the stated hours a week duration, but the responsibility of the financial commitment beyond the maximum grant award will be the grantees. And I've got that magic formula on the screen there. So $7,722 is the nice even amount that we've set for the maximum grant amount for that. The time frame of an internship engagement is intended to be one full academic year. So these grants, we're thinking pretty far into the future. These will be for the 2026-27 school year. And then grants would be paid out in 2 installments corresponding with the first and second semesters. So the letter of interest is open now, and it's going to ask for who the intern supervisor and mentor would be, how you're prepared capacity-wise to host an intern, and the internship job description. And this LOI is also due January 30th at noon. We'll plan to select grantees around mid-February, and then the next step in that is we would connect you with the schools to find and hire your intern using your already established hiring process. Okay, next I'll talk just briefly about the Martha Beckenholt Youth Philanthropy Award. This is not an application that you as a nonprofit would fill out. It is one that a student completes. So this award recognizes a Hancock County High School junior who has contributed outstanding time, talent, and energy to philanthropic efforts. Applicants are Hancock County High School juniors. They submit an application that must include a recommendation letter from a high school staff member or a nonprofit organization leader like you in Hancock County. Then the award recipient will select a Hancock County nonprofit organization to receive a $1,000 grant made in honor of that recipient. So we've included this in the past couple nonprofit news emails. If you happen to have a volunteer who is a junior in high school, you can share the application with them, and you can even provide them a letter of recommendation for that. And then, they may receive an honor, and if they designate your nonprofit to receive that $1,000, you may get $1,000. And if it helps, as you're trying to motivate a student volunteer to apply, a handful of these recipients over the years have gone on to receive the Lilly Endowment Scholarship as a senior, which is a full tuition scholarship to any school in the state. So this application is now open, and the deadline is going to be February 6th at 4 p.m. Then finally, this is a new grant opportunity for 2026. We're calling it Nonprofit Team Building Grants. And our goal with these is to provide funding to encourage nonprofit staff to prioritize wellness and connection and to combat burnout. So the work you all do is so important and can be very challenging and draining. And we see this as just a small but hopefully meaningful way to balance that with some joy and camaraderie. So it's going to fund opportunities for nonprofit staff to enjoy time away from the office, bond as a team, hopefully laugh and have fun. We're going to launch this later in 2026, and we'll have some more specifics then. but we wanted this to be on your radar. What we're envisioning probably requests up to $500 for staff to go out and do something fun together. So maybe that's something like Top Golf or bowling or a wine and canvas, something like that. Maybe not horseback riding, and you can ask me about that sometime if you want. But more to come on these grants soon. Okay, so getting into some nuts and bolts here with application documents. So both the annual grant cycle and the white are going to ask for all of these items on the screen. Many grants will ask for a board list and organization budget in addition to the project budget. And I just wanted to review what we're looking for in each of these documents. Um, Board of directors list is pretty straightforward. We just need to make sure you have a board with real people on it. So we ask for at least an email and a mailing addresses. A list of grants you've applied for since January 1st of 2025. This just helps us better understand where we might fit into your revenue generating strategy. This is also pretty simple. We just want to see what grant maker you requested funds from, the purpose of the request, the amount, whether you received it in full or in part, or didn't receive it, or it's pending. And just to clarify, this is just grants from grant making entities. This is not individual donors or corporate donations. We don't want to see that. This is just grant makers. Then next, we'll talk about the financial documents, which is everybody's favorite. So much fun. But before that, one note, we do not ask that you enter any of this data manually into a form on the application or use a template that we've created. We just want you to upload what you hopefully are already keeping for your own records. However, just with that note, what you submit does need to be understandable for us and our grants committee. So there are certain formatting standards for these financial documents, but as far as whether you submit a Word document, an Excel spreadsheet, a PDF, we're not going to be picky on that. We just need to be able to see it and understand it. And then one other note, if you are having any difficulty uploading a document to the application in the system, please do not spend a bunch of time fiddling with that. Please contact me or Carol and we can help or find a solution to that. So with our software provider, we are just limited on the amount of space we can offer on document uploads, and sometimes that just creates a problem. So if you're running into that, please let me or Carol help. Just ask you, please don't wait right up until the deadline for that. Okay, so first, a balance sheet. This is also called a statement of financial position in the nonprofit world. And again, this is probably just review, but I just wanted to real quickly go over what we're looking for here. So the balance sheet just gives us a snapshot in time of the financial balances of your nonprofit. So assets are the resources that you have at your disposal. Liabilities are your debt obligations, and then it's ultimately got to balance. So we would like to see this document for December 31st of 2025 for all applicants. But if you submit a sheet that's more recent than that, that's okay too. We would just want it to be no older than December 31st. And if you haven't been keeping one of these for your nonprofits, we do have templates on our website that Carol will show you where they're at, and you're welcome to use those for your application, but it's not required that you use those templates. Then an income statement is also sometimes called a profit and loss or a P&L. This shows income and expenses during a specific time period. So while a balance sheet shows your financial balances on a specific date, the income statement shows financial activity over a period of time. So for our purposes, we'd like to see this report for the 12 months of 2025. And if your fiscal year is not a calendar year, we just like to see what is most recent for you. Then at the bottom, the net income field will show the difference between your expenses and income. So for nonprofits, that number will probably be very low, but probably ideally wouldn't be negative. However, there could be legitimate reasons for it to be negative. So all that to say, if there's something that you feel is kind of funky about your financials or there was something weird over the past year, please feel free to include a note with that numbers, providing an explanation. And then the last financial attachment we asked for is a 2026 budget. We just want to see projected revenue and expenses for 2026 that your board has approved. If you keep a running actual year-to-date column on that, you're welcome to include that, but that's not required for you to include. Any questions on financials? All right. I'm getting close to being done yapping here. I've got a few more slides. Thank you for hanging in there with me. If you do receive a grant from the Community Foundation, this is just the general process for getting those funds. So first you will complete and electronically sign a grant agreement that outlines the conditions of the grant. Our default deadline for returning that, I believe, is still 30 days of notification, but it's helpful to us if you can return it as soon as possible, even within a few hours or days, if possible. And that just allows us to start processing your check faster. Depending on the grant, we may request to take a grant presentation photo, or you are always welcome to request that if you would like. We share most of the grants that we make in a press release to the Daily Reporter. We also feature some in marketing materials and on social media. And just one quick note on this. If we do make a grant to your organization that you would rather us not blast out to the public, we are going to have a box in our grant agreement for you to communicate that with us. One example of this is maybe a police department. We made grants for equipment upgrades, and they were like, can you please not publicize the specifics of that because it just makes our squad cars more susceptible to theft. Okay, noted that. Just please let us know if you have a situation like that. Then for the majority of our grants, the funds must be spent within 12 months from the date of award. And that will always be noted in your grant agreement that you will have access to go back and look at it anytime. Then we do entertain requests for grant extensions, but it's not our practice to do that often. These should really be for extenuating circumstances that delay the timing of a grant. And if it becomes clear that you're going to need an extension, I just ask that you please reach out to me, preferably no later than 30 days prior to the end of the grant period, but the earlier the better, and we can discuss it. Otherwise, unused funds must be returned to the foundation. But we want to help you make the grant project successful. So please keep the lines of communication open if you're hitting an obstacle. We want to work with you to help make that work the best that we can. Then the last but very important step in the grant making process is the grant report. We want to know how your project went. We've been investing some time into how we report back to our stakeholders on the impact of our grant making. We've developed a report that takes into account stories, pictures, numbers, and learning to report that back. So I've tweaked the annual grant cycle report for beginning in 2026, and I'm working to maybe tweak some of our other reports to align with that information that we seek, all while being very mindful of not putting undue burden on grantees for that. So all that to say, just please share information, stories, and pictures with us to the degree that you're able so that we can help even more amplify your story through our marketing materials. And then for timeline in general, if you receive a grant the first 6 months of the year, your grant report will be due July 31st of the following year. If you receive a grant during the last 6 months of the year, your grant report will be due December 31st of the following year. That's the typical rhythm that we use for grant reporting. And just a final reminder, all of these components, the application, the grant agreement, the grant report, all of those are going to run through an online grant portal system. So it will all be in one place and you can access your history, your grant history at any time. All right. That is it for me. Any questions before I hand the show over to Carol?
I have one. It's Liz.
Hi,
Sorry.
Liz.
Hi. The new grant you guys are creating
Uh-huh.
for the party. I'm thinking, celebration. We don't have any paid staff, and you referenced for staff. So because of that, would we be eligible to apply?
Mm, that's a good question, Liz. And I don't have an answer to that now, but I
Okay.
will I will consider that as we're finalizing the eligibility criteria for that. Thank you for
Okay.
pointing that out.
Thank you. Uh-huh.
Yeah.
I have a
All right.
question. This is
Yeah.
Katie from Jane Polly.
Yeah.
And this has been very helpful. Thanks for putting this on. For the annual grant cycle that's open, the LOI due at the end of the month. I assume it's one or the other, programming or capital. Yes. Okay. Thank you for
Yes.
clarifying.
Yeah. Yep. All right. Carol, I think you're up.
Okay, everybody. Good morning. Give me a second to get my screen situated here. All right. Come on. Sorry, I'm kind of working on a cobbled together workspace today, so bear with me. Can you guys see my screen?
Yes, we see Hello Hancock.
All right. And now do you see GLM?
We do.
Awesome. Yay. I love it when a plan comes together. All right. I'm Carol Reynolds. I work with Katie and other members of the team. I do all the electronic stuff. So if you're trying to remember or think about who you need to call, if you're having trouble with things online not working right or questions about that, that would be me. Any higher level questions about what's appropriate, not appropriate in grants, that would be Katie. But we work together, so if you call me with a question that I know is above my head, I will let you know. I'm going to show you our just a real quick look at what our online grant software looks like. Many of you have been getting grants for us for years, are familiar with it, or at least fairly familiar. They did make a major changeover last year, but if you applied for a grant last year, you should have seen this by now. If not, this is what it looks like. This is my made up nonprofit. If I were to start one, that's probably what it would be. So this what it looks like now. You will probably have a little bit more of a robust dashboard than I have because I haven't done anything lately. I kind of cleared out all of my sample history. But once you log in as yourself, um, which every contact in your organization who is accessing the grant portal needs to have their own login. Please do not share logins. There's a lot of reasons for that, but if you need somebody added to your organization, you can actually do it yourself, or you can just call me, drop me a note, whatever, and I can add them for you. But right now, we are going to go up here to organization history. And this is going to show you just a summary of what interaction we have had in the past. It will show you earlier this year, I applied for a grant for a road trip for the Dachshunds. So that was my made up one, that one. That's my history down there. I'm working on a very small screen, so everything's going to be a little bit bunched up, but this is going to show you the people who are in your organization who have access. So I have access and Marie Felber has access right now to if I wanted someone else to have access, I could go right here and just invite them. Put in their email address, type a message and say, hey, I'd like for you to fill out a grant. So this is how you can get a login into our system. And then click the invite and they'll get a link to click to sign in. Again, I can do that if you prefer not to, but you can also do it yourself. So that's just kind of the organizational history. Anytime you kind of get lost and buried down into application and you're trying to get back to your dashboard, you can always click on this home button and it will take you back to your dashboard. You can see the opportunities that are currently available here. So right now, the opportunities that we have showing that are publicly accessible are the nonprofit internship grant cycle and the annual grant cycle. If you just want to look at them, you can do that. You can pull up everything there that we've talked about this morning pretty much. is in this information about it. If you decide you want to apply, then you can just go ahead and apply. You can either go up here and apply or down here and apply. Do not use this preview, or if you do, don't put any information in it because you're going to be spending a lot of time on something that you're not going to actually be able to submit. So just go to apply, and that it will come up and ask you the question Katie went over. And then when you are done, you can either save it, or it also auto saves every time you go from one field to the next. But if you want to be sure, do the save LOI. And then when you're ready to be done, you can do submit. The other thing I'd like to bring your attention to is up here in the upper right-hand corner is this collaborate button. Let's say, as an example, you have an accountant who does your financials, and you would like for them to drop those onto your request, but you don't really want them to have access to the entire system and all your history and all of that. You can do a collaborate, put in their address, determine what they can do, if they can just look at it, if they can edit it, or they can submit it. In the case, the example I'm giving you, you would want them to be able to edit but not submit. Then type them a little message, hey, will you upload our income statement and balance sheet for last year for this grant, whatever, and hit invite. And they will be sent a link to be able to go into there and do what they need to do. And then you can go in and finish up and submit it. So that's kind of the difference between collaborate and adding a contact for your organization. Collaborate's a one-time thing for that one particular grant. They won't have access to anything else. So if that's what you want to do, you want to collaborate. If you want them to be able to do an entire grant, they look back at last times, whatever, submit a grant report, any of those things, then you're going to add them as a contact. Does that make sense? Anybody have any questions about that? All righty. Well, I'm going to go back to my home again and kind of talk just briefly about what you see on these screens. And depending on what kind of screen you're looking at, this might look a little different, but on your mobile screen or on a desktop, the first priority will be things that are assigned to you that you need to complete now. It will list them in the priority of things that need to happen. So if you have an outstanding grant report from last year that you have not completed, it will be first on the top of the list with it'll say past due, it'll have the day it was due, and that's what you need to do next. The next column is going to show you things that are going to need some attention by someone, but doesn't need to be right away. These things will be repeated over there, but there might be other things there too. And then this column over here is just things that are hanging out. There's nothing you need to do with them right now, but the grant report hasn't been reviewed by everyone yet. It hasn't been closed out. It's still there, but you don't need to do anything with it. After that, it's all going to go into organization history. That differs from this if you've had multiple applicants, if you've had multiple people, because this is your personal dashboard. This isn't your organizational dashboard. This is yours. So your historical information is here. These are all the things that you personally have done. The history for the entire organization can be viewed up here. Again, it's one of the reasons why we want everyone to have their own login. Anybody that's going to be a grant writer, if they're going to be doing reporting for that grant, we need to know that, and they need to be a separate person. Especially if we start, staff will change or volunteers change a lot. Somebody applies for a grant, spends the money and then leaves, we need to kind of know who else is in that organization that we might approach and talk to about grant reports that might be due, if we need to reassign them to someone else, all of those things. All right, how am I doing on time? Okay, we're not doing too bad. Anybody have any questions about GLM, our grant portal? Because I'm about to get out of here if you don't have anything. Nothing? Everybody's all good? All right, well, we're going to close out of that then. The next thing I would like to show you just briefly, Katie talked about Hello Hancock. I know this has been a struggle for people in the past. I'm hoping the last year has been easier for you. I know I've interacted with a lot of the people who are on this call, but just a reminder, whatever you create for your event, if that's an email invitation, if it's a Facebook event, if it's an e-blast, whatever it is, just include me on it. And I will take information out of that and put it on the calendar. You don't need to do anything separate. You don't need to log into anything. You just email it to me. And you don't even have to remember my email. If you go to hellohancock.com, it's going to give you information about what all's okay and who can submit events, the guidelines, everything's down here. We've had some questions about what is appropriate to post and not post. All those things are answered in the FAQs down here. This will show you how to add an event. And you can also just say, if you see it in the wild, you have my permission to just publish it. Because I will sometimes see things on Facebook or in a newsletter and think, oh, that's not on Hello Hancock. And if you've given me permission to do that, which again, a lot of you have, I will go ahead and put it on there and just send you an email that says, hey, this is on Hello Hancock. So questions about that? Yes, nope. All right. We're going to move on to the next. I'm going to drag this one over. Hang on a second. So I'm going to jump on our website for a second. And again, this is something that I manage. So if you ever see any broken links or errors, please let me know. We try really hard to keep it going, but there's a lot of content. So this is our website, celebratehancock.org. Up here at the top are kind of action buttons. If you want information about our facility or using our facility, this is where you go. I promise you the answer to your questions is in this little link. There's a lot in that little link, including who to talk to. But if you just want to register for an event, you can jump on here and it's going to take you to this page. Oh my gosh, look at that. That's a broken link right there. Craziness. Wonder how I broke that. Okay, so here are your options. Community events, our events, etc. So these are things you can do there. Excuse me. Well, my link is broken, but here, we're going to go to registration. This is what our registration page looks like, whether you're registering for a nonprofit network or any of our other programming that we do. Like right now, we have a pop-up studio for just a civics, a day of learning who does what in the government that we are hosting. There's registration for it. You can just go on here and say, hey, we're bringing 3 people, and it's just going to walk you through the gosh, I'm sorry, losing things. All right, all done. And then it's going to ask how you want to register. If you're registering for your organization, just put your organization there. And then the next screen will ask you to fill in the names of people who are coming. You don't have to register them all under different names. Back to our website. Okay. This tab right here is where you are going to find all things nonprofit related. on our website. There's a lot of content here, including the nonprofit directory that Katie referred to. This will take you to our nonprofit directory. This isn't the prettiest page because this is actually hosted on our software vendor site, but it's better than it used to be, so we're just going to go with that. If you are not listed here and you want to, there's a form right here that you can fill out and send in, and I will get you in there if it's appropriate. And then these are a listing of all the ones that we have. I'm going to ask you to go and check your information and make sure it is current. You guys know how fast things change. People come and go from organizations and contacts change. So I would really appreciate it if you would check and make sure this is correct. And then if you have given us your volunteer page, it's going to have a link here to your volunteer opportunities. Again, if yours isn't on there, please just send it to me. My email is in the chat if you need that. Okay, now back to the other things on our nonprofit area. We have the main nonprofit page has got all kinds of things and will direct you to different places. You'll notice that a lot of these are the same as what Katie went over this morning. Nonprofit networking, we will have several events this year. They are not all public yet. Well, the only one that's public is the volunteer fair right now, but they will all be here, and you'll see there's a separate link to it right here as well. And then right now, this is it. It's poor little lonely volunteer fair, but it'll change very soon. This is the area that Katie discussed about if you need to find, excuse me, this goes down a ways. So if you need a sample balance sheet to see what that even looks like, or an income statement, you can get them here and then use them as you need. There's all kinds of other resources for organizational needs, for other grantors in the area, just tons of other things on here. And there's a link to the community resource directory, which Hancock Health is now has taken over there. You can sort it, you can print it. This is just all kinds of community resources all in one link. This is our press kit. This is new to our website. You'll see this in some of your communications from us about grants. This is just, we put everything on one page that we think you might need to do whatever marketing you're going to do about your grant. We've given you some samples, we've given tips, we've given you logos to use, all of those things. And again, if you have any issues with any of that, you can't make it work, just let me know. I'm happy to help you with that. And let's see, something else I was going to show you on there. Oh, resources from past nonprofit networking events. This is where this recording and slide deck will be posted here soon, next few days. And this is where, like our last nonprofit networking learning that we did was on a Giving Tuesday. And we uploaded all kinds of resources here for you and our slide deck. And that we'll do that for this as well. Up here are links that go straight to, this is that nonprofit directory we looked at. And then this, this is a nonprofit consultant directory that we have put together strictly for your use. We're not necessarily endorsing any of these people. We just have reached out, they've given us information, and you can click on any of those squares, rectangles, and find out more about who they are and what they do, what their expertise is, and where their website is, how to contact them. Again, this is not an endorsement in any way. This is just where you can go to find consultants, because it's a question that Katie gets a lot. Let's see. We have any questions yet? No, nothing. Anybody? I believe that is all that I had. Unless anybody has a question or would like to look at something else.
All right. I think we covered it. Look, we came in under time, Carol. Great job.
Woohoo!
2 minutes to spare. All right. We'll go ahead and wrap up. Hopefully this was helpful. Again, we'll send out the recording and slide deck and load it to our website so you can access that. But again, as always, please feel free to contact me or Carol at any time with questions or concerns or anything that we may be able to do to support your nonprofit. Just want to extend our gratitude for all the work that you do for the clients you serve and what you do for our community. And that extends to your staff, to your boards, your volunteers. Really, really appreciate all that you do. So thank you for your time today, and Happy New Year. And we'll look forward to working with you all this year. Have a good rest of the day.
Thanks.